Hey guys, sorry it's taken so long. I have been a little under the weather. I've been trying to wait for my voice to get kind of back to where it was before I made a video, so that's why it's taken so long. This is about as best it's gonna get. It's like a little froggy, but I think we can get through it. Anyways, we are gonna talk today about chapter 2 of the book, which deals with scarcity. Again, scarcity is this idea of having a finite amount of resources, but that's not even the thing, right? Like, it's how we deal with this idea of having a finite amount of resources. But we'll get into it. I want to give you a couple definitions, and then I want to give you some ideas about how governments handle this in the world today. And it's kind of the basis of your essay this week. So let's start there, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so like part of the problem is that like it's phlegmy. Like I got a phlegmy. Like there's a little like congestion in the throat area, so like I sound a little frog. Anyways, whatever. So part of your chapter talks about the production possibilities curve, or as I learned it growing up. Your book talks about it differently. As I learned it through college, it was called the production possibilities frontier, the PPF. Now they're calling it the PPC. Whatever, you know, it's the same thing. Essentially, it's exactly what it says here: a graphical representation of the alternatives that you can make. So basically, what this is supposed to represent is this idea of opportunity costs, and opportunity costs are interesting because it's like, what is the cost of doing one thing rather than doing the other thing? Like, if you go to the movies with your friends instead of eating with your parents, are you missing out on the good family times that you could have with your parents? Hey, maybe you bond with your mom, you know, instead of going to the movies with your friends. Or if you decide to bond with your mom, what kind of, like, you might be missing out on your next boyfriend or girlfriend. You know, you don't know. You know, those are opportunity costs, right? And these are the things we think about all the time. But the thing is about the production possibilities frontier or curve, whatever you want to call it, is, are you being the most efficient with your time? I know there's trade-offs, but are you making the most of your time, right? That's the point. That is the absolute point of this whole concept. Let me show you in graphical form. I'll show you in graphical form. Give me a second. Okay, so this is like the graphical representation of the PPF, the production possibility frontier, right? So like, here's all the possible F's that you could make, and here's all the possible C's that you can make, and this is the ultimate of both. So like, you can make either like a lot of F's and not a lot of C's, or you can make a lot of C's over here and not a lot of F's. But the one thing you do not want to be, is right here in this position right here. This is just called inefficiency. This is you not maximizing your total opportunity. If you look at point A right here, this is a company or you or your parents or anybody, a government, maximizing the total possibilities right here. They're at the peak of their frontier, right? But if you're B right here, that means you're not doing as much as you possibly could with what you're given, right? And that is so important because we want to be able to, any firm, person, government, they want to maximize their opportunities as best as you can. So yes, while there's opportunity costs, like you can hang out with your family or you can hang out with your friends, in either way, but doing nothing would be completely inefficient. So you want to do one or the other, right? You want to be able to maximize your possibilities, maximize your opportunities, but you do not want to be efficient, which is, that's the name of the game. Now, the back half of this chapter, the second half, it talks about how governments deal with these opportunity costs and how they deal with being able to manage your opportunity costs, being able to manage this production possibilities frontier, right? So it comes down to usually two sides, right? And there's capitalism and there's socialism. We call socialism being a command economy because that means that essentially the government is making all the decisions for your resources. In capitalism, we let firms make all the decisions about your opportunities and your resources and how they're going to be used. So again, capitalism lets firms and individuals decide what happens to those resources. In command socialism economies, the government decides how to best use these resources. Now, this is going to be really important for your paper because you probably think already that there's one better than the other. And first of all, we have to like kind of ask ourselves, what is capitalism? What is socialism? And we can do that. There is, oh, I got this. We'll just move this guy right over here. There is, there's definitions in your books, of course. Market capitalist economy, an economy in which resources are generally owned by private individuals, right? Command socialist means that your government is the primary owner of all capital and resources, and they will decide, right? And then, of course, there's a little bit of both. And let's be honest, most countries are a little bit of both. Even the one you currently live in right now is a little bit of both. But we need to go a little bit deeper into what each are. So this idea, right, of capitalism, this guy right here is, he's kind of like, I don't know, let's call him my like academic crush. He's a very smart man. He's dead. He died in 1993, I believe. But he built this idea that greed is good, that greed drives capitalism. Now, we've always been kind of taught that greed can be a bad thing, right? But greed is what makes you want to do better for your family. Greed is what makes you want to raise your station in this life. And without that greed, without that wanting to do better, we would all languish. And nobody would strive to make the internet or create a new spaceship because they would just be fine with it, right? And so greed is this idea that we could all do better with our lives, and it pushes us to go further and further and further. But on the flip side of this is this socialist idea that, does anybody know who this guy is? This guy is Karl Marx. He has this idea that socialism is based on sharing, and that sharing is good. So the more you share, the better off you are. And he has some very interesting quotes here. The meaning of peace is the absence of opposition of socialism. So basically what he's saying is capitalism causes war. And I can't disagree with him. I can't disagree with him. Because we want more power or land. We've seen wars across this world based on those ideas. And then he says, democracy is the road to socialism. I also can't disagree with him. The longer and longer we have seen democracy take hold in this country, the closer and closer we have gotten to socialism. So if you have an argument with that, please fight me. Write about it. I want to hear about it. But I want to show you a couple of examples here of both capitalism and socialism and show you how they've worked and not worked. So what we have here is like a comparison of economic systems. And I know this is not in your book, but I wanted to show you, like, here's where, like, complete government ownership and control of all the resources is. And we can see, there's a few examples of this. North Korea, Cuba, former Soviet Union. Some people might even call, like, Russia a little bit of this. Over here, some China a little bit of this. But then over here you have laissez-faire capitalism, which is just complete unfettered capitalism. There are no real world examples of this. We all have some kind of government control, and that's why the United States and Great Britain fit into regulated capitalism. So it is interesting that there's been no actual examples of just complete capitalism, but we do see some examples of complete socialism. And if we talk about capitalism, we're talking about, first of all, America is the core case for the fact that capitalism works, right? I mean, look at everything we've built in this country. We have some of the most beautiful cities, and we have the highest wages. We have the highest learning. Our university systems is the best in the world. And if you look at the beauty around our nation, I mean, look, all of these places. Look, Miami's freaking beautiful, guys. Like, there are aquariums where we put giant whales. We put whales in aquariums in this country. It's crazy to me. This thing, it's called the Vessel. I read a story today about the Vessel. Apparently, people keep committing suicide from this thing. They keep running to the top of it and jumping off. Why? I don't know. Maybe something for another video, but just something to look into. It is really weird. Then since people kept committing suicide, they literally shut it down. It's crazy. Look into it. I promise you. It's called the Vessel. It's in New York. Check it out. Anyways, I'll move on. So America is clearly number one when it comes to world wealth, right? We have so much wealth in this country, far more than anybody else. And China is catching up, but they're certainly not one. We are raking in the money. I literally take baths in coins, a Scrooge McDuckian bath of coins. I promise you that I do. But capitalism has also caused some real pain in our country. First of all, you had the Great Depression, which this picture is from. This is called market failure, okay? When market failure occurs, it causes bad things like the Great Depression, okay? But not just the Great Depression. We saw in the 1980s, we saw the savings and loans failure. We saw in 2008 the crash, the 2008 market crash. And now we are in a really bad situation here as well. But has command socialism ever been tried before, and does it work? Well, the answer to that is absolutely both yes and no. I want to give you two examples. First of all, I want to give you the example of Venezuela, and then I want to give you the example of Bolivia, first of all, okay? So, this is the example of Venezuela. I'll clear this out of the way. So, Venezuela used to be the, glorious socialism child of, first of all, the Democrats in this nation, but across the world, people are like, look, socialism works. They found that they had a large amount of oil underneath them, the largest reserves in the world. And over time, they decided to put all of their government programs and feed their country and provide health care under the wealth of this oil, right? They became the socialist dream of every socialist across the world. Like, this is how socialism is supposed to work. But something happened. And look, right around 2016, 2017, and 2019, they began to break down. And all of a sudden, their grocery stores, their grocery stores looked like this. There was no Jugos. You could see here that there was no pizza. There was no Jugos, which means juice. And you have to wonder why. And that's because, the crude oil prices took a complete drop. They lost all their oil, and thus all the money they had for everybody around their country completely dropped off. So this socialist dream to be able to pay for everything through oil prices, that didn't end up being the best idea for them. As a matter of fact, their inflation rose up to 1,300,000%. That is certainly hyperinflation, and that means that any money that they had was absolutely worth nothing. It didn't matter if you had millions of dollars. All of a sudden, it was toilet paper. It was worth more to burn than it was to spend for money, and that is a problem. And we'll get into more of what inflation is, but what I really want you to know is that the Venezuelan situation did not work out very well. And as a matter of fact, their GDP as of today is so below. You're looking at less than 20% year-on-year change, what they had 15, 20 years ago. But on the other hand, there's another country, a country called Bolivia, and they have had the same kind of remarkable socialist success story, but you've heard less of Bolivia, because they decided to put all of their government and their healthcare and all of their welfare systems on another resource that Bolivia has a lot of. And this resource has not lost its, it hasn't lost its value. And that resource is, of course, cocaine. They have built an entire economy based on the coca plant. And surprisingly, apparently, they've been doing quite well, but it's so interesting that you never hear this in American media, probably because the Democrats and those who believe in socialism don't want to seem like they're promoting the use of cocaine. I also want to just say here, disclaimer, don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs. Don't support the Bolivian economy. Here we go. But yes, their product that they have made and built an entire economy around does not have the same kind of issues going up or down that oil does. Apparently cocaine is, I don't know, I guess addictive? Interesting, but we have seen since they have done this, since 2006, their GDP has just done nothing but skyrocket, which is incredible. So, this is the thing. Here is what the question is, right? How do these systems work in the face of war? I've kind of given you an idea of how these systems work in peace, but how do they work in war? And there is no correct answer. I want to hear your opinions on this. But one of the things that I would suggest to look into is that it would seem to me that they both operate similarly. Now, prove me wrong in your paper. If you don't, that's fine too. This is mostly an opinion piece, and I want you to think through some of the thoughts. You will need a couple of references, but I want to see what you think. I personally think, in the face of war, both capitalists and socialists act the exact same. So, anyways, I'll leave you with that. And I hope this was helpful. I will get back to you next week. Please email me if you guys need anything, and know that I'm always here for you. I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.